And we're live. Hello, Ariel.
Hey, how's it going, Marcus?
I'm very good, actually. Very, very good on this
Oh, you're
beautiful
better than me
Monday.
already. You did like 2 or 3 videos
Oh my, now
this
just
week.
very simple videos, actually. Very simple videos. I still have struggle with time, to be honest. And it's a big problem, it's still a big problem.
I mean, I wouldn't say I've been struggling. I've been actually enjoying the summer. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, no,
yeah, yeah,
good on you. Good on you. And you're still
yeah,
moving, you're still moving. So it's a good excuse.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll bring my plasma back next week. I'll be traveling, and it's like 9 hours driving a truck with my
Wow.
Pioneer Kuro in the back. Actually, the
Yeah.
the main reason why I'm renting a big truck is because of that plasma. Otherwise, I will get something way smaller because I don't need. So it's that tells you how much I value that TV
No, no, and
because
it's a good idea to actually transport it by your own
yeah,
because you never know. Do you have still the packaging? No, probably not. What I'm talking, it's a plasma TV
I
20
got
years
it.
ago. Really?
Yeah, I got it without. I wish I had.
Oh,
I
yeah,
got
yeah,
it
yeah.
without packaging. Uh, use. Is
Yeah.
it? I paid $300, which is a lot for an old plasma.
Hmm.
But yeah, they don't make those anymore, so I'm glad I did. Actually,
Okay. Anyway, so today's topic is, does HDR affect FPS or performance in games? So my first question is, have you actually, Ariel, have you experienced FPS or performance loss when you activate HDR? So we're
yeah. Let me
talking
say.
about, I like to clarify, we're talking about native HDR. We're not talking about outer HDR or NVIDIA's RTX HDR, because we know that especially NVIDIA or RTX HDR cost performance, okay? No doubt about that. I'm talking about native HDR, okay?
Yeah, and I'm surprised you wanted to talk about this because I actually have a way of looking at it that completely changes the my opinion. So I would say no right away. Yeah, you turn on HDR on a game, maybe if you rigorously test your FPS, maybe you get like 2 FPS less. But I've never seen a game where I'm getting 60 FPS on SDR and then I turn on HDR and I'm struggling to hit 60. I've never seen that.
Okay.
So it might be there. Maybe there are some games that I don't even open on SDR anymore. I just right away I turn on HDR and
That's the
I'm not
thing.
testing.
So,
Yeah.
um, so because I'm working actually in the background on a video for this, and I was hoping actually to finish it already, but again, time. But what I'm doing is I really comparing SDR with HDR in the same game and the same settings, same levels and stuff like that. And I have actually prepared one small or little video, the first one, and I like to share this very quickly. Just give me a second. It's the problem is, so we have a problem. It is actually, let me mute this. It is recorded in HDR, so that's why it looks probably very weird on StreamYard. But let me just go back here and let me just pause here. So on the left-hand side, HDR, right-hand side, SDR. So again, it's recorded in HDR. I don't know how it looks like on your end, but probably washed out. Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay, we're just looking at the FPS. So right now at the moment, 70 to 79. So I wouldn't say at this very moment there's a problem with FPS at all, because even I'm trying to stand on the same spot and whatsoever, the performance most likely is difference anyway, regardless of HDR and SDR, because 2 frames difference is not much. Okay, and when we just continue, and you will see I start walking actually at some point. You can see it's fairly close, 77 to 79 or whatever. Now we have the problem that you can't read the FPS anymore because it's just washed out. In the HDR version, it looks much better, believe me. But what I found is, and this is the first game I tested actually, let me just move a little bit forward here, that it appears to me that there is slightly a difference between HDR and SDR in this game, Ratchet & Clank. okay, in this game. Okay, but again, it's very hard to say because we're not talking about 10, 20, 50 frames difference. We're talking about a couple of frames difference. And the question is now, of course, is this the afterburner which is recording not exactly the same frames, or is this really something from the game? I don't know, to be very honest. So that's the first game I tested, okay? I'm planning to do more games, at least 3 or maybe 4 games, to have a better idea, because one game is not very, how should I say, what's the right word?
Representative of all
Yeah,
the conclusive to
yeah, correct.
But I mean, from what I can see on the comparison, it is consistently higher. The FPS is consistently higher on SDR, even if it is just 2 frames. That is significant, especially if you're trying to hit 60 all the time, or 120 or something.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about actually doing the comparison HDR versus SDR from the console game, but recording FPS is so hard actually to make a really good comparison. It's very hard. So I'm not Digital Foundry, so I'm very away of that. So I can't do this. That's why PC is actually much easier. And I found, so let's just stop here for an example. So here, this is so according to what I have done with the video, I try always to have exactly the same spot and frame by frame, exactly the same. And that's the intro sequence from Ratchet & Clank. So I think there shouldn't be any difference in terms of performance in the recording. The only difference can be HDR on versus SDR. And now we have 100 to 102, and also the frame time is better on SDR. So yes, I agree. It does look that there is a slight difference or advantage towards SDR, at least in this game. Okay, so even I'm not sure, maybe there's also a difference in terms of the engine what is used in the game. Let me stop here again.
And let me ask
95
you,
to 102. That's a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you, you're recording from an external PC.
So in this case, I recorded from the same PC, not externally. So the next game, what I will do is the plan was actually to do the same recording again on an external one, just to see, because I was thinking about this as well. Is there a difference in terms of how should I say, in terms of when you record HDR or when you record SDR, with OBS on the side? Is there a difference, in terms of performance loss? I would say no, because I recorded both actually. So also the SDR variant with NVENC and also with HDR settings. So OBS is not doing anything different in regards of HDR or SDR recording. The load on OBS, let's say like this, should be exactly the same. The only difference is really in one. I have SDR enabled, and in one recording SDR is enabled in Windows, so not even in the game. So Windows is completely turned off HDR to make sure there is nothing working in the background, and the other day or the other time it's enabled. So again, but you're right. That's a valid question.
No, because maybe I was thinking maybe the HDR recording is a little bit more demanding, but you can maybe see that. You notice maybe that the same difference before recording when you started running
I checked this.
the
It's
benchmark.
the same. So it's the same, because when you load a game in Ratchet & Clank and you're not moving, you just load the game. Then I also had in SDR, let's say at this very moment, 1 or 2 FPS more compared to HDR. Because when you stand still, of course, the performance is probably less than when you have to move around, and HDR has to do something in the background. So, but it's very hard to say.
Well, that's interesting, but it is not insignificant. 2 frames are 2 frames. People overclock their GPUs to get 2 frames more.
I know. So it's of course the question if you're talking about 200 frames or 198, or if we're talking about 58 to 60 FPS.
Exactly.
That's a difference. And as soon you hit over 60 FPS, the problem is, or the thing is, on PC, usually you have VRR, G-Sync, all this stuff activated, so you hardly notice probably 2 or 5 frames difference. You know what I mean? But on the console, it would be very interesting, and I never experienced this, or I never tested this actually, that let's say you have a game which is falling all the time below 60 FPS, let's say to 55, between 55, 60, and then when you play an SDR, you have more or less stable 60 FPS. I haven't tried this before. If this would be, or if that's the case, actually, haven't tried it.
Well, you know what? For me, it is something to consider because, for example, sometimes I cannot get 120 FPS on a game. I mean, nowadays, almost never, because especially with these newer games using Unreal Engine 5 or trying to push the boundaries. And then all I can get is 60. So when I get 60, I use this BFI on my TV. And Hellblade, for example, I'm almost there with DLSS performance. It's like 3 frames that's dropping sometimes. So maybe I turn off HDR, and when I'm using BFI HDR, you're not getting HDR anyway. You just need a brighter picture because you're losing brightness when you use that. So maybe I would try SDR to see maybe if I can get those last 2 frames. That's why I'm saying it definitely matters. And it is important to know if that's what you are sacrificing. Maybe depends on the game.
I mean, if let's say from a personal point of view, if we're talking about 5 to 10 FPS, it's very hard to say because it always depends what is your base FPS. You know what I mean? It's always the question, But we are lucky with PC because we can change settings, and in games like Ratchet and Clank, even the SDR mastering is really, really good. I would not sacrifice HDR over, let's say, one setting to reach 60 FPS again. But it depends game by game, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm saying on Hellblade, like I lowered the settings already to the minimum and DLSS performance lock, so I don't have anywhere else to go. Like there's nothing else I can lower because I'm not gonna play with ultra performance because that looks very blurry. So maybe 2 frames I need. Let me try SDR. I will do that actually when we finish this. It is interesting when you're showing it.
I got used to something.
Definitely.
And this was actually, so when we look at this at the moment, so the problem is also with Ratchet and Clank. That's why I have to try more games. It has even in the intro sequence dynamic crowd and stuff like that, and also some effects are not always the same. Even it's an intro. It's something like I don't know how to call it. It's a dynamic intro. The colors from the difference and stuff like that. Yeah,
there's a round-to-round variance. That's what the people.
That's why with just one game saying, oh, HDR in this case right now 5 FPS, oh my god, it's terrible. It's not fair because we don't know if we would just reverse this, if it would be the same, maybe 76 then for HDR and 71 for SDR because of something else is different in the picture. Maybe. That's why I need to test. I think I'm going to test Dead Space, the remake, and maybe Ghost of Tsushima. But it's also a problem with the dynamic weather. Probably that's a bad idea. Anyway, some games where you have just a static background, something like that, a very simple thing.
Yeah, maybe try, for example, Shadow of the Tomb Raider that has a built-in benchmark that tells you at the end the average FPS, and it tells you with numbers the details. So maybe you can show on the video, and then you can post the run to because it's very consistent. There's no changes on that one.
So look at this at the moment. So if we can trust my recording, and again, it's very hard to have exactly 100% the same thing, but we have 78 to 84. Interesting, the frame times are actually exactly the same, but there is a difference right now from 6 FPS. But again, it's very hard because when you compare the picture, you can actually see that the background is slightly different, you know. So that's why, again, one game is not enough to say there's an impact. But that's why we actually, and let me get rid of this.
But so far, actually, on every single example, the HDR FPS was lower.
Yeah.
I didn't see any, because if sometimes you were seeing the HDR higher, maybe you don't know, but it's always lower on that
Yeah. So
example.
correct. So for this game with this engine and stuff like that, I would say yes, I will lose performance when I play in HDR. You know, is it worth it to play in HDR this game? Absolutely. That's a different story. Scope Gaming is actually writing HDR does not affect FPS. So that's his experience. That's what he's writing. Again, I just started to actually doing some testing. So I'm not agreeing with him, but I'm not disagreeing with him, So would be interesting to hear more from his experience. So maybe he put actually maybe some examples in. Oh my God, hey, Steady Chaos Production. Glad to see you going strong, Amok. Hey, nice to see you.
How's it going? Let me say, Steady Chaos Production. He's the reason why I got the C1. I saw a comparison when I was looking for my TV, and I was trying to decide between the CX and the C1, and he was showing the brightness difference at 60. The C1 was brighter. He said, "Oh, maybe the CX is better in motion. That's why it's darker." But yeah, here's the difference.
The
And
CX
yeah, that was actually the case. The CX is
is
more
better in
clear
motion.
at 60 with
I
BFI.
I
But I
now
decided to go with a
yeah.
C1, and it was
No,
because of him.
you're right, but I still even can say that the CX in SDR has one of the best SDR picture compared to my other TVs, full stop. The G2 is not as good, and my S95C is also not as good. It's the CX in SDR is outperforming those TVs, but that's a different story. We are here for HDR. Anyway, oh my God, we would have so much to talk. Oh, by the way, I can't do 3 hours today because I have full house with 3 kids, and they're going to
Okay.
be hungry at some point. And I heard that you have to feed them.
Okay.
Anyway, Rebel Dark Angel. Hello, friend. A question. SDR 10-bit 120 Hertz HDMI 2.1 Google Chrome 444. What is your question? So SDR 10-bit doesn't make any sense, first of all. But because SDR is 8-bit, but and I think there's even some issues with if you try to do it in 10-bit, because it will just show probably what's the name, banding more often. But anyway, I don't get his question. Do you?
Oh, maybe he's talking about the Google Chrome. The Google Chrome is that sticker you connect to
Oh,
the TV. So maybe
okay.
he's asking about the settings for that. Actually, I have a Google Chrome, but I haven't messed around with the settings. For
I
my
mean, look,
family has it.
I have an experience with the Apple TV with this little box, because I
Mhm.
bought this because I thought Apple TV, according to tests, great picture quality. But I tested it for a couple of months and then I disconnected it again because the S95C, so I tested it on the S95C, has a better internal picture than the Apple. It's clearly visible. It's sharper, has less artifacts and stuff like that. So, but again, I don't know about this. As I would need to test this. It's very hard to say this is the best because it also depends on your display, what your display is doing with the signal. So,
Well, I
not sure.
think what I can say is that if the content is 8 bits and you have 10 bits, it's not gonna hurt. I don't think so.
I mean,
So
you have to
yeah,
try it, test it.
it's not gonna hurt.
What do we have here? From my own experience, the HDR impact is niche. No, I can't pronounce this word.
Negligible.
Ja, genau. Okay. At best and 10% at worst. Okay. Okay. But this is what we have seen probably in the
Oh,
first
but
game.
10% is massive.
Yeah,
It would be.
absolutely. There's no doubt. I mean, 10% doesn't sound much, but it is. It is absolutely.
Yeah, I would be with RTX HDR, but yeah, he's talking about native
We're talking
HDR. But
about
yeah,
native. Yes. Yes.
RTX HDR it is significant for sure. At least
Yeah.
with my 3080, it depends on your GPU, but Yeah.
So SDR 8 or 10-bit with HDMI. I would use 8-bit, to be honest. It's no, but again, it depends what your TV. But again, if it depends what your screen is doing. Maybe it's better with a 10-bit signal. I don't know. But SDR is 8-bit. You know, there's no 10-bit SDR. It's not. But what is this here? The crossover we didn't need, but the one we deserved. Yes. Okay, I'm just going to the comments that we. And by the way, let me know. Is my audio actually loud enough? Because in the recording, when I watched it, Ariel was much louder than my voice actually.
Well, maybe because I have the phone closer, but you sound loud to me.
Okay, good. What is here? My name is Jeff. Hey, Jeff. Only noticed FPS loss playing Cyberpunk with a 3060 at 4K. How can you play Cyberpunk on a 3060 with 4K? It was tough to get 60 FPS and turning on HDR. Oh, okay. Basically, you need a bit of overhead. Okay. Cyberpunk is also maybe an interesting game to test, to be honest. Yeah, because but it's also hard because there's also very dynamic crowd and stuff like that. So it's anyway. Christy, hey guys, long time no see. How are you? So do we have? So if you have any questions, put this in the comment section with a Q in front of it, because then we know it's important. Okay. Jesus G Wine is asking, Hisense U8N good for gaming? That's a good question.
I saw a review comparison. I mean, it was a review about the QM8, the one from this year, the TCL QM8 from RTX, and at the end they compared that with that TV, with the Hisense U8N, and that's a very bright TV. It's like almost 4,000 nits on a 10% window.
Okay.
Very bright. So, and it has a good contrast with the local dimming, and the native contrast is not very bad. It's LCD, but it's not very bad.
You know what? I will leave this running in the background, because then people know what we're talking about.
I don't remember what the downside was, but there is a picture on that video at the end that has the specs and the numbers of the. So basically, the war is between the QM8 or the U8N, and I think the U8N might be better because it has a little higher native contrast, but I don't know. I would need to play with them to see which one has better settings to change the picture. The one thing I believe these reviewers are missing on the reviews is to talk about the tone mapping, because these displays are HDR displays.
Yeah.
So what are the tone mapping options, if any? Because they show you the EOTF tracking, and that's very nice. But which setting is that specifically? Do you have more settings? So that's very important, and I would like to know. So basically, until I get one of those TVs to play games and test the settings and all that, I don't know really to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, I think nowadays all the high-end TVs are probably very much on the same level in terms of gaming, not on the exact same level, but I think you can't do much wrong nowadays, with Hisense or Sony or Samsung or LG. It's more about the lower end TVs where you need to be careful, because especially about the input lag, I think that's the most important thing anyway when you play games, input lag. So I rather would have a very good SDR display with a good input lag than a very good HDR display with a bad input lag, because that ruins the game. But yeah, I have no experience with Hisense whatsoever. I don't even know if they're selling Hisense here in the US. In Australia. I'm not quite sure.
Do you have Panasonics over there?
No, No.
I hear either.
Unfortunately not, because apparently they're really good.
Yes, they're really good. And do you have Philips?
We have Philips, I think, yes.
You do?
But I don't know. So experience with Philips is not that I would. There's not a good experience with Philips, but this was before OLED actually, so a little bit hard to say, but.
So I'm looking at the. Yeah, just go. Keep going. Let me see if
Yeah.
I see that picture. To remember that review.
Socrates is
from
asking,
Martin.
hello, does Win 10, 11 makes a difference for HDR? Should I update to 11? Not in regards of HDR quality. No, I can't see that. The only advantage with Windows 11 is that you have the system level calibration tool, but a game must support this then to actually have some benefits from it. So no, not for HDR. Performance-wise, I think Windows 10 is still slightly faster than Windows 11. Probably, but I would always recommend Windows 11 anyway. There's no problems anymore with Windows 11. That's
Well,
my
I would say the thing is not if Windows 11 is better. The thing is you get auto HDR on Windows 11, which is very good, and it works with the HDR calibration app. And RTX HDR doesn't work on Windows 10, as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
So, based on what people told me on that video, I don't know if they fixed that already. So, I mean, right there, that's a big deal because not all the games have native HDR support, and RTX HDR looks very, very good. And Windows 11 Auto HDR looks very good when the gamma is right, and when it is not right, you can fix it with an ICC profile that I share from Di Laranga. You can Google Di Laranga in GitHub, and that ICC profile you can use it for games that are originally SDR Gamma 2.2. Those games with Windows 11 Auto HDR, they look washed out. So you use that ICC profile and they look perfect, look very, very good. So I would say, yes, get Windows 11 if you care about HDR. Just because of that, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I wouldn't recommend Windows 10 anymore, to be honest. No. There was a couple of issues, in the very early beginning of Windows 11 when I changed from 10 to 11 and I changed back to 10 because I was just annoyed. But nowadays, no, it's working flawless. I mean, so again, topic today is HDR. Has HDR any impact on performance? And the only game what I tested so far is that what you can see at the moment, Ratchet & Clank from the PC. Same settings in terms of graphical settings both times. The only difference was that HDR is obviously HDR, and the other one is SDR, which is recorded in HDR, but okay, let me explain this. So OBS, I recorded with OBS, and I never changed the settings from OBS for both videos, okay? Because I like to make sure that you have exactly the same. So that's why probably right now HDR is a little bit washed out. It looks overblown and stuff like that. But we're not focusing on that. We're really just focusing on the FPS. And I tried my best actually to make sure that both videos or both recordings are exactly the same. But the problem is what I found with this game, that even you're recording the intro from Ratchet & Clank, the intro is not exactly the same both times because you have different people, different colors suddenly, or background stuff going on. That's why I have to do more testing, actually. I have to record more games and maybe also console games. And I think maybe I test Resident Evil 4, because Resident Evil 4, I think in the graphical mode is hitting 60 FPS. Not very often. Let's say like this. Okay, so it's struggling to hit 60 FPS, and maybe with HDR disabled, maybe that's a different story then. But I need to test this, okay? And that's my the question actually is today. Have you experienced anything in regards of that? And what is your experience? And what was the game actually? That's very important to know. Okay, so let us know what is your experience.
Yeah, I think for most people, it might happen that if they have an HDR display, they just open everything on HDR. They don't even try anything else, especially after you figure this out. Figure the auto HDR and all the things you can do. You can always get a better experience. But if you are playing a competitive game, and I know there are some people that they don't care about making the game looking good at all. They anti-aliasing off, everything off, low, ultra low, and they just want all the FPS.
700 frames.
Yes.
Counter-Strike.
So yeah, and we do have nowadays, something like this QD OLEDs that are 360 hertz, or even this WRGB that's 480 hertz at 1080p. That has to be very, very good if you can get those frames. So yeah, there are some people out there that they do care about 2 frames. Don't tell me that's a big deal.
I know. And that's why, anyway, that's why I prefer console playing sometimes, because you don't have to mess up with your settings. Because I spend more in the option menu than playing the actual game. But anyway, that's a different story. Mr. Walker is writing or saying, I have done what was MW3? My goodness, I forgot it. Modern Warfare 3 benchmark on PC with both HDR on off, and it makes no difference to FPS. Okay, that's interesting. And I think that maybe there's also a difference in terms of engine. Maybe, you know what I mean? There might be a difference, So that's why I need to do more testing. Modern Warfare is probably also probably a good idea, because it's a very static game, not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of the graphical, what is going on in the background. It's always very statical. It's very pre-rendered, or whatever you want to call this. That's probably also a good idea. Yes. So let me know, guys, if you have experienced any issues with or performance issues with HDR on in all the games, or even with consoles, because console, of course, is very hard to say. But I would like to know this as well. And it's very hard to record proper FPS actually from the console with the tools I have, at least. So I wouldn't trust them too much. When we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 frames difference, I wouldn't trust my tools on that. But maybe that's a topic for Digital Foundry at some point, because they have proper tools.
So I want to answer this comment from Asri. He's asking, what can RTX HDR improve in the future performance? That's the biggest thing, because it looks fantastic, and I think it is just plug and play. I mean, you just turn it on, it works. You have to change the peak brightness. So I guess they have to allow to set a higher peak brightness in case you get one of these Hisense U8N or TCL QM8 or just a brighter TV. You need 3,000-4,000 nits for the TV to look the best. Then of course you want RTX HDR to allow you to do that. I think right now it's 1,000. Last time I checked. I'm not sure if you tried recently. Maybe they updated it, because they're improving the drivers and everything
I haven't
constantly.
tested it actually.
But I think that's what they can fix. Maybe, I don't think they have to add too much, black level control or anything, because RTX HDR looks right. The gamma looks right. You never see it looking washed out, unless the base game, it just looks bad. They're not gonna fix it, but I mean, it's very, very good. And I especially like the settings, they have to increase the brightness overall, because there are some people who like that dynamic tone mapping effect. Everything looks brighter, and they do have that slider that works very very well without raising the blacks and destroying the contrast of the picture. You can get a brighter overall picture, and I think RTX does that better than anything else, honestly. So they just have to improve performance.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends, of course, on your GPU. If you have a 4090, you probably don't care. But if you like to have the highest FPS, I mean, yeah. Nah, performance is the most important thing. So, but again, in terms of HDR, I mean, I never thought about this before I read the comment actually in one of my videos. So, and I was not thinking about that. So, it especially not with HDR10. So maybe Dolby Vision can be even a bigger, I wouldn't say issue, but a bigger difference, because Dolby Vision has dynamic metadata, and maybe there can be something going on, and also it can increase maybe the input lag, which is also would be a different video as well. If there is an increasement in input lag when you enable HDR, I wouldn't say no. I would say no, actually, not with HDR10, because it's just static metadata. I can't see that there is anything what the game has to do in additional, but I might be wrong. You know what I mean? So very hard to say.
You told me that Mass Effect Andromeda supports Dolby Vision on the PC.
Yeah.
But it was capped to 60 FPS, right?
I can't remember. It was back then. This is a very old video where I recorded with my phone actually back then, and it was very hard to get Dolby Vision running on a PC at all. And so it started at some point with Dolby Vision. I don't know how. And then after I finished my recording whatsoever, and I started my editing, I turned off my PC, turned it on the next day. I tried to get it running in Dolby Vision again. It never worked again. I don't know what's going on. I haven't tried it since then. But this is off topic from this video, but there is a clear difference between Dolby Vision and HDR10, native Dolby Vision HDR10, especially in specular highlights, because specular highlights, it's very hard to see on the video because of my crappy camera from back then, but specular highlights have much more information in it, or you can see much more than with HDR10. Yeah, because it's not overblown, it's not too less. The game knows exactly what the maximum peak brightness is from the TV and makes it perfect. So,
and let me ask you, you saw the Dolby Vision symbol on the TV?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Absolutely. And so in Mass Effect or whatever, when you go to the option menu, you can actually change it to Dolby Vision. There's a Dolby Vision option. But again, as soon I tried this at some point, I had either a complete green picture, which sounds like a problem between RGB, YCBCR conversation, whatever, changing or something like that, or there was no picture at all. And after the timer ran out, it came back to HDR. I never made it, or I was never able actually to get Dolby Vision running. Just one time, and that's it. And since then, I never tried it, to be honest. Never tried it.
Yeah, I have to see if I install it.
Yeah.
The game, I wanted to play it because I beat the first the trilogy, the Mass Effect trilogy. But the game got so much criticism that I didn't want to even play it, because once I got my hands on it, I was like, okay, this game is trash. So yeah, with that mentality, I couldn't even try it.
What is this here? HDR impact in performance is known for years now. So this is really interesting, because when you Google this, actually, then people saying, yes, there is performance issue, other people saying no. Then I found 1 or 2 videos where people just testing one game and there was no difference, and then there was another video, there was a difference. So that's why I think you have to test different games, different engines, and then you can make up your opinion about this or summary, not just in one game. And again, this is just one game here, what I tested right now, Ratchet & Clank on the PC. Again, same graphical settings. Only difference is one time HDR is enabled and the other time SDR.
I
And
think
yes,
your video on this topic is very valuable because you're giving it almost the digital foundry treatment. You have that tool to analyze the consoles too, so you can if you can show that difference on the consoles. If a game has VRR, you can show
I know.
that. There are more people who play on consoles, so that
Yeah,
might be more popular.
But if there is a difference on the PC, then there should be a difference on the
Oh,
console as well.
absolutely.
So there is no
Absolutely.
difference at all. So, and it is much easier to do frame time analysis on the PC than on the console because of MSY Afterburner. It's just a set and forget, it's just easy. But you're right. I would like to actually, and this is so time consuming. I don't know if anyone ever tried to record frames or performance from console, then they know how time consuming this is and how big of a chance is that you, let's say, recording 10 minutes and then you try to analyze this and then you realize, oh, the recording is broken because of whatever reason. It's not fun, you know what I mean? And I know that Digital Foundry has their own tools, and I know what John Lindemann is using and whatsoever. So they are free tools, but with, how should I say, with settings you can't access. Let's say it like this, okay?
Oh, you would have
Because
to pay to access all the.
because they know what they're doing. Okay, so that they it's not like there are free tools out there like Teardrops where you can analyze, and Teardrops is actually not. It's just analyzing the footage. The problem is the recording, and OBS is very bad actually. With even you can record lossless on a very, very high quality, but you need to have a perfect recording in terms of the quality. There can't be one frame missing or whatsoever, because this would Teardrops would just show this as a frame drop suddenly. You know what I mean? So that's a very big problem. Recording in lossless and the highest quality, what Teardrops requires, is not easy from console. And it requires tons of gigabyte of space, believe me.
And also, a lot of console games have dynamic resolution scaling. So
yeah, it's
if the performance is the same, but you're losing a little bit of resolution, then who can tell that small difference? You might be seeing the same FPS, but maybe the picture would have higher resolution on SDR because it is slightly less demanding.
Yeah. So I agree with TC2. I rather play a game at 58 FPS with VRR and HDR than 60 FPS without HDR. I mean, that's without a doubt. It depends on the game, of course. If you have crappy HDR, then it doesn't matter. But yes, absolutely correct. I would rather play in HDR than SDR, no doubt.
Yeah, what I wanted to say, what I hinted at the beginning is I have another way to look at this question. HDR, it does impact it. I'm not talking about performance, but look at it this way. The reason why we need a very high FPS is because we don't have CRTs anymore. Okay, CRTs have that great motion, very, very low to none input lag. And of course, the higher FPS is going to give you a lower end-to-end system latency. But the reason why we need 1,000 FPS is so we can get that motion clarity with HDR, basically. So the only reason why we will get to play games at 1,000 FPS plus, and even more, of course, using asynchronous reprojection, frame generation, different techniques, of course. It's not going to be raw, your PC running real 1000 frames per second, because it doesn't make sense. But the reason why we will get there and we need it is because HDR. Because otherwise, you can use backlight manipulation technique, BFI, or any other technology to reduce the persistence, so you can get that 1000 FPS like experience, and you don't need that that many FPS. But the problem is, when you do that, when you reduce the persistence to improve motion, you're gonna lose brightness, and when you lose brightness, you lose HDR. So for me, the cost of HDR comes mainly from that. If it wasn't because of HDR, it doesn't make any sense to try to push maybe more than 300 frames. From that, you're not gonna be able to tell that much the difference when it comes to your input lag and the system latency. It's not gonna matter, but it will matter when HDR is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I think it does cost performance in that way, if you look at it in that way.
So I like to just Adventures of Detroit is saying right now the SDR looks better on my monitor. So just a little bit information about this video. This comparison, what I've done, is recorded in native HDR, and right now it's playing in an SDR picture. So it's not looking good at all. Okay, I know the original footage. It doesn't look nice right now, but the fact that it's looking better in SDR is because it's still the normal standard dynamic range. That means nothing is overblown and stuff like that. The difference also in colors is the same when you watch the native version, actually, because HDR is using slightly brighter or more vivid colors. But again, don't go for the SDR versus HDR right now, because that's not the point of this video here. I would put more effort in actually to make a proper, or I did actually a comparison, and SDR is very close in this game to HDR. Despite the fact that HDR, of course, has very nice specular highlights, but there is no HDR black level rays, which is great. But SDR is also, in terms of brightness, overall brightness and whatever, really, really good in this game. Absolutely. But again, don't look right now and compare HDR versus HDR. We are just here to compare frames, actually, right now. Okay, that's what we like to do. Let's see. Pixelygon. I don't know how to. Anyway, thank you. Hi, guys. I love your channel. Love TV and monitor tech and HDR. You're very welcome here. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
The performance hit isn't too bad with a RTX HDR if you use NVIDIA Profiler Inspector and set the banding filter to low quality, okay? I personally can't see a huge difference outside of regained FPS, okay? I never tried this. If you can actually lower the performance impact or whatever, or get a better performance, there would be NVIDIA RTX probably. We should more focus probably more on NVIDIA's RTX HDR, but it's very hard to record, by the way, because you can't record NVIDIA's RTX or the HDR just off the screen or with OBS, because it's a filter. It doesn't work like that. You can't do it, because you have to use a second PC or whatever to record this, and it's just a pain in the ass, really. Absolutely. But we would need to focus more on RTX HDR, actually. What is this here? So my name is Jeff. I can see the superior image on the HDR side thanks to RTX HDR video. Okay. I'm not sure what RTX HDR video would do right now with this picture, to be honest, but can be, yeah, maybe, because again, the video is native in HDR10.
Yeah, the thing is with, for example, when you use this reshade add-on that was called Major Paint, the Cactus, and all of that, it is enabling HDR from the engine. So you get a higher bit rate, you get a higher quality. It's not going to be, it's not gonna give you new, details and stuff, but uh, it does look like a higher fidelity. It's like if you increase the resolution, you don't have a new object on the game, but you can see better. It looks more clear.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does give you more information. RTX HDR might be doing something similar. And for example, when I look at a near black test pattern with RTX video, you see that it looks kind of wet. It doesn't look. It's trying to smooth out the gradients. It's trying to do some smooth gradation, so you get less color banding uh, with that SDR to HDR conversion or whatever is going on there. So yeah, it is. It looks better, and it is definitely giving you a higher quality somehow.
Okay.
I believe.
Now that's good. That's good. I mean, look, all that's one of the reasons why I bought actually Nvidia over AMD, because of all these little features, call it like that. I mean, the main feature was actually the main issue. The main reason was Nvidia's DLSS. That's why I went with Nvidia, because it's just, in my opinion, still superior over AMD FSR. But FSR is free. There's a everybody can use it. That's also a very good thing from AMD, but that's why I went with Nvidia, because they have so many great things, like Nvidia's broadcast studio, it's just fantastic stuff like that,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not the topic today, I don't want to start here Nvidia versus AMD war. No. Because again, I like to say, if you're just a gamer, go with AMD. No point to buy more for Nvidia. That's my
By the
opinion.
way, what is that X? I've never seen anything on X.com. I've seen that mentioned recently everywhere. It seems like it is something
It's
some
Twitter. It's
fashion now.
Twitter. No, Twitter.
Is that Twitter?
Elon just renamed it to X because he can.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Twitter.
Oh, I don't have Twitter either. I only use YouTube. But
That's
yeah, I
fine.
was wondering, what is that?
No, it's this. It's Twitter. Yeah, it's called X, and maybe next year he's calling it different again. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but that's yeah. You should have an X account. There's a lot of people. You can talk to each other and whatever with your the similar interests and whatever. It's really good actually. I like
So
it.
let me comment on this. I get it, Ariel, but clarity is a subjective issue. Lots of players like motion blur, for example. In the grand scheme of things, motion clarity is not high on the list, I suppose. Yeah, it is not high on the list. But the thing is, what is better is better whether you like it or not, or whether people know about it or not. So I believe that the industry will move forward in that direction, and we will get to the point where we're playing games at more than 1,000 frames per second. And the reason is HDR. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense at all. If it wasn't because of HDR, you don't need that many frames. If you need higher motion clarity, you can just reduce the persistence, and that's it. Yes, it would be nice to have 1,000 FPS, so you can get 1 millisecond um, of everything, maybe, or lower. I don't know, but
Yeah.
It's not something that many people would notice anyway. But I think it is all about marketing and what the media and the big outlets are trying to uh, talk about or push or whatever. And the push has been always for input lag and competitive players and NVIDIA brainwashing or whatever. So that's what people care about. Hey, but the input lag is higher. If you tell people that input lag is higher, I don't like that because it's what people know. But motion is very, very important because when we play games, we are moving all the time in most of the games. So if the motion is not good, all the 4K and the high fidelity thing goes down the toilet.
High fidelity mode, 30 FPS. Yeah, what is fidelity on Fidel
Well,
on 30 FPS?
exactly.
Yeah.
So look, it doesn't make any sense. As soon as you move those 30 FPS, you don't see any fidelity. So,
Yeah, that's anyway. No, but you're absolutely right. So the first time, so I bought my CX years ago, and I just played PlayStation 4 on it. So that means 30 FPS games most of the time, and I was shocked about the quality actually, because I came from LCD TVs still when you go back to LCD TVs and you play 30 FPS, it's not bad, you can't see anything when you move around because everything is blurry, but it's not stuttering or whatever. So OLED stuttering all the time,
yeah,
plus 30 FPS plus blurry picture, very bad. Okay, compared to anyway, but at some point got my PC and experienced the first time 120 FPS on an OLED TV, and I was like, oh my god, I'm moving and I still can see what's going on in the background. And I was like, I can't go back. And even going back from 120 FPS to 60 FPS is such a big step.
it's
It's
big.
such a big step. You know what I mean? At some point, I have a 240 FPS monitor here. Yes, the step from 120 to 240, yes, it's also visible, but I think not as from 60 to 120. I think it depends on your eyes and stuff like that. That's what I experienced. But I can't, it's very hard to go back, especially then go back to 30 FPS on an OLED screen. It's impossible, in my opinion. It's
And
very
he,
hard for
he
my brain.
mentions motion blur. Some people like motion blur. The thing is, when you have a stuttering becomes motion blur when you increase the FPS. So when you have 30 FPS, the stuttering is very annoying. So then you add motion blur so it doesn't stutter anymore. So for 30 FPS, motion blur it might be recommended and it might look better. I don't argue with that. The thing is, 30 FPS doesn't look great. So
Yeah, it does not. It does not.
some people like to add motion blur even to 60 FPS,
Yeah.
but I don't see the point of that because 60 FPS is already blurry. It doesn't stutter. So I don't see
Yeah.
the reason to add motion blur to that.
Yeah.
Honestly.
No, that's one of the first options. So there's a difference, of course, for object motion blur on maybe the full screen motion blur and stuff like that. It can make a difference. So when I'm talking about motion blur, I don't like full screen motion blur where just the whole picture get blurred when you do something. No, I don't like this. Object motion blur can be really good in some occasions, but I'm not sure if all the games using this. But that's actually one of the first options I turn off. Motion blur, chroma aberration, and what else? A couple of other things. That's the first thing I turn off.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Rebel Dark Angel, let me just quickly try to answer this one. Xbox VR creates shaking on roofs, leaves, and grass in video games, or is it a defect in the game? I have Neo QLED Samsung. So VR should not create anything of that. It should do the opposite. It should make a very nice, smooth looking picture without any VSync issues or without any tearing and stuff like that. So I'm not sure what game you're talking about, but if there's a let's say in Ronin in the game on the PlayStation 5, even you activate VRR, it's very, very bad because the frame times jumping like crazy and there's nothing what VRR can do. And then sometimes, because it run out of the VRR range or whatever, you just have tearing suddenly. Stuff like that, okay? But if everything is in the range and VRR is working as it should be, you should not have this stuff. So it can be the game, can be also maybe a setting on your TV, maybe. But no, usually VRR or G-Sync, FreeSync should be without any issue.
Or maybe that shaking you're referring to is like shimmering. You have a lower resolution. Maybe when you're using VRR, you're changing to performance mode.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
good point. Yeah.
so maybe that's what's going on there.
Yeah. So because this is still something you need to consider, because if you, let's say, so even with Ratchet and Clank on the console, in order to reach actually a higher frame rate when you use VRR, it's lowering the resolution. That's what is happening. Even you're in the same mode, even you don't even change from fidelity or performance mode, just you enable VRR, you have a lower resolution. Okay, what do we have here? This one here. My name is Jeff. Yeah, RTX HDR video is producing superior highlights on the HDR, even if the stream is on SDR. I love this feature and I use it all the time for movies. Yeah. Okay. I did actually a video on RTX HDR back then when it was introduced, and I had mixed feelings about it. Yes, it created actually a very nice looking HDR picture, but also it raised the HDR black level floor. I don't know if this is now resolved, but there was an issue back then. I noticed. That's why I haven't used it actually since then, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried some near black test patterns, and I didn't see the issue.
Okay.
It was looking a little bit wet, so there's
Okay.
some processing going on there, but it was
Absolutely.
looking okay. The black level was I was still getting perfect blacks, but yeah, who knows? I mean, sometimes on the PC you never know why you're getting a
Yeah.
specific
No,
issue. Yeah.
that's a problem, because even you have the exact same. Yeah, it's PC is. It's not easy actually to say it's an issue with RTX HDR or with my PC. And again, I haven't tried it since then. I reinstalled Windows just recently on both systems, and since then I haven't tried it actually. Can be a different experience now. Gang08. Why is Dolby Vision so dark? Darker than HDR? In theory, fantastic tech. However, I deactivated it. So this is probably mainly an issue with your monitor or TV, because first of all, there are, I don't know how many. So we're talking about games or TVs or movies, because you can't disable Dolby Vision on Netflix or whatsoever. It's not possible. So if your TV supports Dolby Vision, it will use Dolby Vision. That's how it is. Literally, you can't disable it. That's how it is. For gaming, there are just a few games. Few is probably even not the right word. There are just 1 or 2 games, 3 games, which are supporting a Dolby Vision natively. So on the Xbox, it's just Halo Infinite. And what I experience on my LG TVs, that as soon I'm enabling Dolby Vision, the average picture brightness actually brighter compared to HDR10. But this is because the EOTF curve, when you use Dolby Vision gaming mode, is not correct. It's just over brighten the pictures or the game picture. Okay, so this is mainly depending on your monitor, maybe a setting issue and stuff like that. So,
but
it should
let
be.
me give you a recommendation. If you want to make it brighter because it looks too dark, first try to figure it out. Is it too dark? Near black, probably. So it looks too dark when you are on the darkness, or are you talking about the midtones look too dark? So what I would do is play around with a 22 points calibration and increase the RGB values, increase them in 10 and see if that makes a difference. Increase them less, or if it's just near black, for example, you can try increasing from the lowest or a 20-point calibration. If you have a Samsung, they have a 20-point calibration. So try to increase them, for example, near black, 10 RGB, then 9, then 8, 7, 6, or 10, 8, 6, 4, and make it brighter like that and see how that looks. but if you have the chance, uh, and the Dolby Vision is not calibrated well, then better use regular HDR10. I've never tried Dolby Vision because I only play games, and there are no Dolby Vision games on the PC I can play. So I've never even seen that on my TV.
So that's probably a question for you. What's the perfect sharpness setting for LG C1 to make the game look sharp but not overly sharp?
So on the C1, you have this sharpness slider that is under clarity settings. And that slider has different behavior when you are using the standard game preset, or if you're using FPS or any other game genre presets. And I guess it is the same with all the LG OLEDs. So if you want a sharper picture, I would recommend you to try the FPS game genre preset. But when you do that, reduce the color saturation, the color depth. Reduce that in 4 clicks, in my experience, because when you use this FPS game genre preset, it is increasing the color depth. It's pushing the colors outwards for some reason. They did that. So reduce that when you use FPS game genre preset, and then increase the sharpness to 10. And that gives you a sharper picture that looks actually very good. It works very well for games that look blurry, or if you are in standard game genre preset and you want a little bit of anti-aliasing. So let's say you have the opposite case. You have a game that has a little bit of shimmering, it looks sharp, then you can use sharpness up to 15, and it gives you a little bit of free anti-aliasing. That's what I can recommend it. Yeah, give that a try.
I think there's even a difference between the PC and the game mode. Because the PC mode, I think on the LG requires actually, I think sharpness 10. I could be wrong. I haven't used the PC mode.
Yeah, by default,
ages.
it has that in 10. But I always lower that to down to 0, because you can change it. It's not locked.
No, it's not locked. So the problem with sharpness setting is actually people. So that's my experience. People think when they're increasing sharpness, the picture looks sharper, and yes, it does look sharper, but it's not. Sharpness is just you have a lot of aliasing subtly. You put out a lot of fake information because you're not gaining more information if you have already a correct sharpness setting just by increasing it. So this doesn't work. But it's very subjective topic, because some people like it sharper, some people like it not that sharp or normally sharp or whatever. It's very, very hard to tell. So
yeah,
I'm using sharpness 0 in game mode for my
yeah,
LG.
no, me too. But for blurry games, for example, I played the Uncharted games like that. On my PC, the Uncharted games look very, very blurry. So I use that FPS game genre preset and the sharpness in 10 to play them, and they look very good. I tried sharpness on the TVs is very important. What I don't like is the TVs who have some sharpness going on, and you're gonna turn it off because it's gonna look bad sometimes. But I tried this Sony TV that I was talking about that has the very good motion clarity with the backlight manipulation at 60, and that TV all the time has a sharpness something going on with the sharpness, and I have to say it looks very good, to the point where at 1080p it looks impressive, it looks good, and I don't see anything wrong about it, honestly. So I would like to have that as an option on the TV.
Yeah.
But they can do it very well. Basically, it is important because it can definitely help you with the blurry games that we have today. The TVs come with those settings.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk again about HDR and SDR performance. And for everybody who just joined, the video, what you can see is recorded in HDR, but we're not comparing picture quality today. I was just wondering, if there is a difference between HDR and SDR. And this video is the first video I compared, or the game. And in this, actually, I think we have a difference between HDR and SDR in terms of performance. SDR looks like it's performing slightly better, sometimes up to 10 frames, but again, it's very hard to say if this is just because how the game works, because it's a very dynamic game, actually, in terms of background, what is happening in the game and stuff like that, or if there is really an impact from HDR. So I'm going to compare more games, and we'll do a video about this. Not sure exactly when, but hopefully by next week. And then we know more. Okay, but I would like to know from your experience, of course, if you have any games where you experienced I wouldn't say big, but significant or noticeable performance loss when you activated HDR. That's the topic today. And in the meantime, we can answer this. I'm about to buy a LG OLED B4. Is it good? A B4. I mean, the B4 is it's a great TV. No question about that. No question about that. But it's always very hard. I personally would not buy the B4. I would like to buy the G4, but that's a different, it's a money question, of course, but it's for sure a good TV. It's always the
Yeah, I don't
question how much
know
you
if
pay.
I've never looked at the B series, but I think the B series is supposed to be as good as the C series of the previous year. I just don't know if it has all the gaming features. If you want it for gaming, does it have VRR? Let me see.
It should have, but the question is it? So because I know back then the A series back then I did not recommend to buy because it was just a 60 hertz panel, or they limited it to 60 hertz probably. I don't think that they're using different panels, to be honest. So if this would be the case, then I would not recommend it, of course, because 120 hertz plus VRR plus all the other features should be the minimum what you should have nowadays. Especially you're not buying a TV just for half a year or something like that,
Yeah, it does have G-Sync and FreeSync. So yeah, just check the basics. It is an OLED. If it has the same brightness, about the same brightness, I don't see why not. If it's significantly cheaper than the C4.
Yeah. It's always, hard to recommend stuff like that because it's a personal choice, to be honest. What is this here? There is only one game that I tried that have a massive FPS drop when playing in HDR, which is Exoprimal from Capcom. Exoprimal. I think I never tried this one, but this is interesting. So is that's on a PC, obviously, or not on console? Because again, I haven't tested console performance in regards of HDR, SDR at all. Not at all. I have no idea. But again, if there's a performance loss on the PC in a certain game, then I would expect the same behavior on the console as well, because there shouldn't be any difference. And again, if you can see in the video right now, when we just looking at this example at the moment, we have 90 on the HDR side, 90 FPS, and 106 FPS on the SDR side. So that's a lot. That's a lot, That's really a lot, But again, I'm not sure if this is really the game to test and the game to make a summary or conclusion. I don't think so. I need to do more testing.
Yeah, but I mean, with that side by side video, all the time the SDR has a higher
Yeah, yeah.
FPS. Haven't seen a single example.
Let's have a look here at, because here, just give me a second where we can see the frame. So here 30, 73 and also 73. But when we compare the frame time, it's 1 millisecond actually higher on the HDR at the moment. I think it's, it's very hard to say there's, because you can't have a proper, a 100% correct side-by-side comparison. It's probably not possible, or at least not in this game. But at this very moment, there's no difference, I would say. But then, just 1 minute ago, we had 90 to 106. That's... So here, this is actually interesting. We have 70 FPS on HDR, 71 on SDR, but the frame time on HDR is right now better. So, interesting, So, really, I don't know what to think, So now 71 to 74. It's very hard, but again, this is the first video. This is the first game I compared, and I will do more, at least 3 more, that I have actually 4 games. And I try to have different engines, not the same engine all the time, because I like to know if there's maybe something. Yeah, and then I will make a video about it, and then we can talk about it. That's the plan. So this comment here, but it's some kind of bug. By the way, I play it on via PC Game Pass. When I play the game with HDR, we can see low. Okay, you can see low GPU utilization and reverb tuner overlay. Okay. Yeah, that's sometimes we need to be careful if there's bugs going on in the background when he enables certain things. And yeah, again, I need to do more testing on this topic, to be honest.
So the B4 here, based on an RT's review, has 665 nits on a 10% window, and sustain 100% is 144 nits. So it is performing like a CX C1, and it has all the features, but BFI. It doesn't have BFI. It has VRR, G-Sync, FreeSync, 120 hertz support, and it has HDIG and game optimizer mode. So yeah, it's just less bright. It seems a little bit less bright. It might be a worse panel. So if the panel has like a green tint or something like that, and it doesn't, qualify for a C series, then they do a B series.
Probably,
something.
yeah. It at the end, it depends on how much is the difference. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, if you like a recommendation, I would probably recommend the LG G4 or the Sony, to look at it, to play games. But that's a different price region then. You know what I mean? So very hard to say.
Oh, this one's not cheap either. It's like $1,400 right now for a 55-inch B4.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not very cheap. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah, it always depends also from what are you coming. What was your last TV? You need to have if now I have a G2 in my back, and if I would buy a G3 just because it's cheap, it doesn't make any sense, because there would be not that much of an improvement. Of course, yeah, we have the higher peak brightness and stuff like this yet, but it's not worth to spend that much of money, and G4 is probably a different topic, because it has a lot more features now with the tone mapping options and stuff like that. But it always depends, you want to have a big update from what TV are you coming from. If you have a very cheap LCD, then any OLED TV will have a significant improvement in picture quality. So, a lot of questions.
Also, I wanted to mention that talking about performance and HDR, the most impactful performance hit that I've seen from HDR is when using what's the name of this mod? Special K. When using a Special K, you have some options to get a higher bit rate. That is, the performance is like half your FPS basically. Like you're getting 120 enable that thing, you're getting like 40 frames per second. It's incredibly massive, and it looks very good. But I don't see, I mean, a bump in the quality that I can, to justify what's going on there. So it might be broken, but that's the biggest performance hit I've seen. So maybe it is possible for game developers to, increase the fidelity so much with HDR that you actually lose a significant amount of performance. But
Yeah.
if it looks better, it might be worth it. I just don't know that they would, invest on that change. I don't think the developers would, work on it. So it's like an extra settings
Yeah.
for HDR or
HDR
something.
HDR is still a niche. You know what I mean? It's still, even almost every TV supports it now, but it's just a TV. It's in terms of monitors, it's a complete different story. To find a proper HDR monitor, you have to spend a lot of money compared to the size. But it's still not a mass. Yeah, the majority of the people don't even know what HDR is. That's how it
Oh, yeah.
is. That's how it is. So this one here, which games, movies, use of HDR has left a lasting wow impression on you guys? You want to start?
It's difficult to say. I would say the last very good HDR impression that I got was with RTX HDR, and I was surprised because it works, and it just works. Like the gamma looks right, and the colors look very, very nice, a little bit overly saturated, which is nice for most people, and that impressed me. But new games coming out, I got latest game I tested, Hellblade, Black Level Race. Nothing impressive at all. Game looks blurry, and chromatic aberration, all that crap. So it is difficult to get impressed with the new games coming out because they just don't care that much about HDR. I'm looking forward to Black Myth Wukong that's coming this month, the 18th or the 22nd, I forgot. It's coming very soon, and I definitely want to play that game because that's the kind of games that I like. So I hope I'm impressed with it. It's Unreal Engine 5 point something.
We have something like Outer
So
HDR.
yeah, so I'm not. I don't know what to expect with Unreal Engine. I hope that they knock it out of the park and it looks fantastic. But yeah, I'm expecting, honestly, if you ask me, I'm expecting it to look very blurry, performance very bad,
Yes, I
and the
expect
HDR Black
this.
Level Race. That's to be expected.
Yeah.
So, but
Well,
yeah, I don't remember, honestly, something that impressed me recently with that. And movies, don't get me started with movies. I mean, I was actually expecting to be blown away with Avatar. That was the last movie I watched, and the Avatar version that I watched was like over 70 gigabytes, and it looked terrible, absolutely terrible. I mean, that it was horrendous, and I was not expecting it to be that bad. Especially, I know film grain. Hollywood directors, James Cameron, I don't know, they like film grain. But I actually used the HDR analysis tool using Reshape plus MVP or MPV, something like that. So it was not my perception. I could actually see the HDR of Avatar in a graph. And there was a layer. So the black floor was basically film grain. So there was the black floor was film grain. Then there was a space in between that was blank, and then after that, the actual picture was starting. So Black Level Race, it was terrible, absolutely terrible. I'm sorry, I don't know why. So honestly, I don't know why they would, focus so much and having a reference monitor and color grading and all of that to come out with that mess, because that was a mess. But yeah, I guess you go to a movie theater and you watch that movie on a projector, and it's not a big deal because the projector looked terrible anyway.
Yeah,
So,
correct. Yeah, I haven't been in a cinema in ages, to be honest. In ages, there's no, I don't know.
Yeah, last time I went to a movie theater was to watch the Star Wars movie that was very bad, that received very bad reviews. The movie was terrible, absolutely terrible. As the worst Star Wars movie I've seen. The audio was good, but yeah, the picture was terrible on that big, huge projector screen. It was very bad, honestly. So yeah, nothing to impress me.
Nah, I think, but you should give it a try. The Witcher. I found The Witcher really impressive with HDR, at least on the Samsung, on the S95C. I found it really good actually, but I never analyzed it. But the impression was good. But I agree with you. Some of the, or most of the, movies what you watch, and actually all of them are now in HDR or Dolby Vision or whatever you want to call it. But some of them are too dark. Then you have whatever filter on it, and it looks green and stuff. I don't know what they're doing sometimes. It's just I have the feeling that they're using this $2 million camera, to have the perfect source, and then they're editing this, and then I think, oh, this looks good, and now click filter, click poof.
Yeah, you destroy completely.
Let's go to post procession, and let's see what they can do. And we need a green filter and film grain and chroma, and yeah, now it looks absolutely fine. I don't know. And I think,
well, that's the thing. They are using. That's what I don't understand. When they have those cameras that are insane, they're incredible, and then I don't know why they don't use them to their full potential, and they record in very low frame rate and add all the post processing thing. Of course, I understand a movie. You're not gonna record it and it looks like a documentary. Okay, like a cell phone recording. I understand. There are some things that need to be done, but I just didn't like Avatar, and that's the kind of movie that you watch to be wowed. With the CFI. How do you say that? The CGI? No, I forgot how you say that thing. Yeah. And I was not impressed at all. I didn't like it actually at all. So yeah, it was a rant. After I watched that movie, I did a rant video. I didn't like it.
No, but it really, it's no, I agree with you. They're all using this high-end cameras. We never can afford. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, and then at the end, I don't know. They're recording this, and then they're using probably the cheapest LCD monitor what they can find to edit the stuff. And that's it. I don't know how they're doing it. I really would like to know this. Really.
I would like to see your take on it. The thing is, you cannot show a movie. Maybe you can show some screenshots with the HDR analysis tool, because maybe you start criticizing James Cameron and people think, oh, this guy's out of his mind. Like, what is he talking about? But if you show a graph that, you can actually see the black level raised this big on a very dark scene, and the black floor is film grain, then what are they doing? That's just wrong. I'm sorry. That looks very bad, and it looks bad on my TV.
I know. So yeah, movies in general are, you need to be lucky. Most of them looking okay, but not on a level where there would be reference or stuff like that. Because still, it's not a. Yeah, they don't care. To be honest, I have the feeling they don't care sometimes. Anyway. Okay, so let's have one or two more questions or whatever, and then I need to go. Unfortunately, I have to finish a little bit earlier today. What do we have here? Ghost of Tsushima with HDR with dramatic contrast mode blew me away. It's so good, so colorful. Yes, but I do not recommend the dramatic contrast mode. But that's again, it's a personal decision. I showed it in my video that it's actually crushing blacks even more than in the normal mode. And yes, that's always the thing, because you have something very dark and very bright, the contrast suddenly is very, very good. But that doesn't mean you have a lot of information on the screen, because I can make perfect contrast and have a black part, a black picture, and then 1000 nits, perfect contrast, and it looks wow, but you don't have a lot of information. But Ghost of Tsushima's HDR, PlayStation 5 and PC version, is on a very, very great level. Absolutely fantastic. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, one thing that happens, and I don't know why, I experienced that when lowering the black level using reshade or the game settings. When you lower the black level, it looks more colorful. And it not only looks more colorful, you see with the HDR analysis tool, you see that the color space it gets bigger. I don't know why. So it looks more colorful when you lower the black level, and when you try to increase the overall brightness of the image, you washed out the colors a little bit. That's how it works. I don't know why or how. I don't know the reason behind it, but that's what I see.
I think so. One of the main reasons is, and maybe I need to ask Classy or Matt on this again, but the darker the colors, the more you actually outside of the SDR range as well. So it's now not about dark, but when I'm analyzing colors in HDR games, I found a lot of BT 2020 use when we're talking about very dark objects. I'm not sure if this is an issue with the analyzing tool, but let's say we have very dark blue or whatever, so you hardly can see it. So the analyzing tool is telling me, oh, that's 2020 color, BT 2020 color. So maybe because it's so dark, it's so blue, it's outside the SDR range already. That's why with lowering the black level or making the picture darker in general, you may be expanding the color volume or information. Maybe, I'm not quite sure, but I experienced this as well. Yeah, absolutely. You're correct. As soon you increase the brightness, you lose information or color information. That's what I experienced.
Yeah.
One more. Here, this one. That's the last one. Mario Heat. Interstellar in 4K HDR Blu-ray looks amazing. I never watched it on Blu-ray, to be honest. But yeah, it would be interesting actually really to analyze probably Blu-rays as well. But it's from a copyright point of view, you can't really, I don't know how to do that, because you can't show anything. Literally
Or
anything.
maybe just show screenshots with the HDR analysis.
Yeah, a screenshot should be fine because you never know. So even with Red Dead Redemption, some things, even with screenshots, they are very particular with this stuff, But anyway, that's a different story. It's very hard to show it. You can't show it like that video, because it doesn't work for obvious reason, which is silly. Because if I would do a video comparison from a movie between HDR and SDR, the purpose is not to show the movie. The purpose is to show the difference, So it shouldn't be a copyright issue, in my opinion. But anyway. Okay, guys. So unfortunately, I have to leave now because my wife needs to leave in 20 minutes or whatever to airport to pick up some friends, and my kids are hungry. Probably I'm hungry as well. And yeah, that's time. But anyway, it was great again, and I'm working on the video, HDR versus SDR and the performance issue, performance loss between HDR and SDR, if there's any. In other games. Here in this game, obviously there is some issues or some performance loss, but let's see, maybe I can finish the video by Wednesday, okay? Because it's a lot of recording and side by side. It's not easy, okay? Let's say like this.
Looking forward to it. I think it is very, very interesting. Something that people don't know about. I mean, it hasn't even crossed my mind to care
Me neither.
to test that. So it is important, I think.
Yeah. Okay, no worries, guys. Okay, thank you very much again for all the people that joined. Great questions, great community, and yeah, we see you next Sunday. Okay. Oh, and we have a visitor. Okay, good. I will finish my stream here. Here is the little one. And yeah, I see you guys. Can you say hello? Hello. Sag hello. Okay, okay. Okay, no worries. Okay. I see you guys next time. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye.